Question number one. The Breakfast by Jacques Privat. Lack of communication, trivial conflicts. The simple poem Breakfast was written by the famous French poet Jacques Privat after the World War II. As it was a poem written after the World War II, Jacques Privat paints the lifestyle of the people who met trivial conflicts because of the communicational breakdown, which was the skyrocketing problem at the times. Let's examine these things in following paragraphs. The poem's narrative centers around the man's actions of making breakfast. But when we read the poem, we can understand that the simple actions of the husband, which seems as not only a physical but also the verbal ignorance to the wife, makes her to narrate the poem in a sympathetic manner. Without speaking to me, without looking at me, the repetition of the diction without also emphasizes how the wife was affected because of the lack of communication. We all know that good communication can solve any problem in our lives. But here, as a wife, yearning to connect with her husband verbally, she feels very sympathetic. And finally, she was crying because of the unbearable pain which comes from the lack of communication. Even though husband is making breakfast, his ignorance to communicate with his wife in the early morning seems as conflicted action, which not only gives sorrow to the wife but also gives the frustration to the husband as well. Actions which should signify intimacy, such as pouring coffee and stirring sugar, become as a tension in the absence of the communication. The man's strange gestures in the early morning, like lighting up the cigarette, putting his raincoat, and leaving home in such a bad weather, are some frustrated actions which the people are experiencing because of the absence of the communication. He put on his raincoat because it was raining. Here, husband thinks that living in such a bad weather is quite nice than staying with his wife, which is the example of the internal depression. The raincoat, worn because it was raining, serves as an emotional barrier, shielding the husband engaging with the speaker. And this kind of communicational breakdown creates a dam between the natural flow of close relationships. Hence, this kind of dam not only breaks the relationship of the people, but also gives the unbearable pain and frustration. Moreover, the climax of the poem, where the speaker puts her head in her hands and weep, encapsulates the profound human frustration resulting from the lack of communication. The fear symbolizes the overwhelming burden carried by the absence of the verbal communication. So, in a sublime conclusion, we can tell that through the vivid imagery and symbolism, poet tells the effects of the tribal conflicts which are coming from the lack of communication. Moreover, this poem comes as a message to have open communication with people, which can bridge the gaps and aids us to live a peaceful life without depression. Question number two. Father and Son by Cat Stevens. A desire to break away. Question number two. Father and Son by Cat Stevens. Lack of understanding, desire to break away and shape a new life. Father and Son is an amazing song which was written by the British songwriter Cat Stevens during 20th century. This poem. Question number two. Father and Son by Cat Stevens. A lack of understanding, desire to break away and shape a new life. Father and Son is an amazing song which was written by the British songwriter Cat Stevens during 20th century. This poem centered around the two different characters, their perspectives of life, and father's incapability to understand the son's wishes to release himself and build up a new life. Let's examine these things in following paragraphs. To start with, we can tell that typical parental advice of the father makes him to understand less about his own son. As the father is so busy in telling the same advice in his to his son without thinking about the son's perceptions and desires. The son in this poem finds uncomfortable. You're still young, that's your fault. Here we can understand that father's lack of understanding leads him to view the age level of his son as a fault. Young age is an age which contains full of advantages and innovative ideas. But for father, it seems as fault to leave from the traditional path and follow new things in life. If the father understands his son well, he views his son age as a blessing for him to explore new things in life. Instead of that, father is viewing his son's age as fault. Hence, the father started to repeat the same boring advice, which makes the barrier against son's wishes and it adds a gloomy mood to the poem. Next, when we can tell that lack of understanding, which mixed with the feelings of love and protection, leads the father to ignore the son's desire and draws the image of the father as an incapable father who can't understand his son well. As the father represents the older generation, he thinks a lot about the consequences of actions before doing anything. Similarly, in this poem, father thinks a lot about the son, which seems as obstacles for the son. Find a girl, settle down. If you want, you can marry. Here we can understand that father seems as fearing about the son's desires. He may think that son's joining in Russian revolutionary act is an unbearable pain for him, which emphasizes his love towards the son. The father seems as worrying about his son's future, so he tells the advices like find a girl, settle down, which can make the son incapable to think about the Russian revolutionary act. Here, even though the father's thinking is to convert the son's desires to break away from life because of the love. As readers and even the son view this activity of the father as a huge obstacle for the bright future. As far as the father and son's relationship is concerned, the father always comes as an antagonist for the son's dreams. For children, their parents are the big supports to achieve their dreams. Here, according to the son's reply for the father's advice, portrays that son ignores to tell the dreams of him to his own father, which draws the strange mood to the poem. Here, the tone of the son is sorrowful as he finds his own father as a villain character to whom he can't express his dreams and desires. The son considers his father as a person who can't understand the mood of the youngsters and stereotypical. How can I try to explain horse when I do? He turns away. Here, the son's explanation about his dreams are wasteful in front of the father. Even though the son wants to raise his voice and tell the things which he wanted to do, he ordered to listen, as many parents did want the children to take superiority than them. But according to this poem, Stevens clearly portrays these kinds of parents who can't understand their children. And it's strange that even though the son has reached the marriage age, he can't able to break free from the uh, free from the grasp of his own father. So, in a nutshell, we can conclude that the poem Father and Son by Cat Stevens is all about the father's lack of understanding of a son's desire to break away and shape a new life. Question number 3. The Nightingale and the Rose by Oscar Wilde. Selfish and concerned only about their benefits. The Nightingale and the Rose was written by the most famous British writer Oscar Wilde during the Romantic era. Even though this prose was written during the Romantic era by using professor's daughter and young student, author very nicely demonstrates the people who carries a love which was full of self-centric ideas in this modern era as well. Let's examine these things in following paragraphs. To start with, we can tell that Professor's daughter is the most significant character who comes as a great example for the selfish person who values money than true emotions. As far as our human world is concerned, human beings are following their own benefits without thinking others. I like this as a member of this corrupted human world, Professor's daughter also started to be like that. When we analyze the first incident in the prose, we can understand that the young student is crying to get a red rose. She would dance with me if I brought her a red rose. Here, the professor's daughter comes as a person who doesn't think about the other's feeling. Even though the young student is her love, she doesn't think about him in that way. She seems as giving conditions to build up their love without thinking the conditions of weather season weather and the season. Young student condition and she orders the students to bring her a red rose which can't be find through those season. Her turn of the speaking is mixed with the feelings of egocentric and get advantages behind the name of love. She misuses the feelings of love for the silly purposes like personal interest. So here she comes as a person who only thinks about herself. Moreover, in the latter part of this rose, also we can find such a quality from that girl. The red rose, which was created by the true portion of pure love and sacrificeness, is wasted meaninglessly by the professor's daughter as she got a real jewels. Jewels host more than flowers. According to the above statement uttered by the professor's daughter, emphasizes that people are doing everything for their benefits, and here the girl dares to give up her love in the name of jewels. Her self centered nature values money and other materialistic things more than love. When she ignores the red rose, she even doesn't think about the struggles of the young student to get that rose in the time. Without thinking anything, she ignores the love and rose of the student, which criticizes the nature of these people who devalues the feelings and true emotions. On the other hand, young student in this prose also comes as a person who acts in the way like professor's daughter act. In the beginning part of the prose, we can understand that the students deliberately yearns for the red rose and he comes as an aspirant of love. But when the red rose was ignored by the professor's daughter, young student may think that it can't help him anymore. Hence, he threw it into the street. He threw the rose into the street. Where whether he knows the background story of the rose or not, it's not a nice idea to throw it into the wheel. Here, the student threw the rose into the street as soon as he started to know that the red rose can't help him anymore. In this situation, young student's personality also compared equal to the professor's daughter's personality. So, in a nutshell, we can conclude that both the young student and the professor's daughter are selfish and are concerned only about their benefits. Question number 4. Richard Corey by Edwin Allington Robinson. Appearance may deceive people. The social poem Richard Corey was written by the British writer Edwin Allington Robinson during the 19th century, when England had class-oriented society. Here the poet deals with the chasm between our reality and the perceptions and warns the readers that appearance become mere illusions. Let's analyze these things in following paragraphs. In the beginning part of the poet tells the readers that we have to view the people's inner heart through the appearance. Here we can understand that the name Richard Cory alludes to the king of the England, and poet draws the Richard Cory as a kingly character who was always mesmerized by the people. Whenever Richard Cory went downtown, we people on the pavement looked at him. Here the poem was written in the view of the people in the pavement. The diction pavement emphasizes that the poetry of the people in the Richard Cory's surrounding. In the appearance from the people's view, Richard Cory is physically perfect, and this line portrays the Richard Cory as a man like celebrities. And this urges the reader and draws the picture of the Cory as a highly authoritative figure in our hearts. And then the poet brings the picture of the Cory as a good personality in the downtown. And he was always human when he talked. The diction human emphasizes his personality. He was very good man in people's heart, not by the appearance, but also by the personality. But still, he fluttered pearls when he said, fluttered pearls indicates the image of the people who are excited when they get the greeting from Richard Cory. For them, his personality is unachievable. The point presents Richard Cory as a known entity and he often seen as an admired by people. And he glittered when he walked. The diction glitter also indicates the divinity of the person and it emphasizes his well characteristic. Overall, the people's view about the personality of the Richard Cory is down to earth and well formed. Next, we can understand that the poet talks about the big higher passion of the Cory. He comes as a person who is very richer than king, and this hyperbole emphasizes the Cory. Horace living is like Horace living is life of a king. That we can't easily conclude that the life of the king is happiest life in this world. And it is a hint which the poet wants to give to his readers. And he was rich. He was richer than a king. And moreover, we can understand that the people in the pyramids also yearning to live the life of the Richard Cory. It draws the image of the Cory as a peaceful and attractive figure. Finally, the poet ends this poem with a tone of irony and gives the readers a sudden juncture. The person who is admired by the people attempts suicide gives the ironic effect to the poem by proving the theme that don't judge the book by its cover. Many people think that people who are very happy in society are living a best lives, but we have to understand that our world is a drama stage and the people in the world are actors. So we can't tell that happiest people are living the most cheerful life because poor hearts may be covered by the richest coat in the society. And similarly, this thing may happen to the richest Cory. So we can understand that what we see and what we hear may mislead us. And the sudden depth of the Richard Cory aids us to think that what on earth could have primed the society for a man who appeared to have everything, including people's heart. Even though people in the payment observed his appearance, they didn't understand the psychology of the Cory. And we know that our society is thing which tells the real about which can't understand the real situation of us. One calm summer night went home and put a bullet through his head. So from this line we can understand that the outward appearance always deceives us and gives us an eternally. So in a nutshell, we can understand that the life of the Cory can be compared to the iceberg, which one can see only the top of it. So here also people can see the outward appearance and it makes them to believe that he's the cheerful person in the society. But according to the latter part, we can understand that Puri is leading a miserable life, which couldn't openly viewed which couldn't openly viewed by the society or the people in the payment. So I firmly believe that this poem is all about the theme that appearance may deceive all the people.